Before I begin the video, I just want to flag, as always, that I am not a qualified financial advisor and nothing I say should be considered as financial advice. Hello, I am the Geordie Saver and welcome back to my channel. So I am back after about a month of not posting a video, but I'm really wanting to get back in the swing of things, and there's been something that I've been thinking about for a while and I thought I'd make a video on it. So the theme of the video is, should I move up the property ladder or invest? So I have recently had our property valued. Living in the northeast, the property market, if people aren't aware, the prices have been rising a bit in the past year, and it's been making me wonder whether we should be selling our property and moving into a more expensive one to get more space, but also to benefit more from potential property rises, or whether we should stick with our small mortgage and ramp up the investments. So what I've done here is I'm going to kind of project forward some possible scenarios for moving up the property ladder versus investing. So yeah, I mentioned at the start of the video, but I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing that I say should be considered as financial advice. So all the things I'm going through here are just me playing around with some numbers and seeing how it may present itself for my personal financial situation. So just bear that in mind. So some of the conclusions I come to at the end of the video are relevant for me, but may not be relevant for you. So some of the current assumptions I've got, so I've filled in all this before the video. So my current monthly mortgage, including our overpayment, which is set at the interest amount. So our standard payment is £509. The interest that accrues on the mortgage is around it's around £100. So the current monthly mortgage that I've set it at is £610. So that automatically comes out our bank account each month. The house value now, it was recently, and I say house, it's a flat, but it was recently valued at £215,000 to £230,000. For the purpose of this video, I've just went with the lower valuation, which is £215,000. Because I live in a flat, and this is probably the key point for why I'm doing this video, is the house price has stagnated somewhat since the past couple of years. So we got the property valued in 2022, and it was 215,000. So we came out at the same valuation 3 years later. And then the estate agent was saying that because of the property type, because it's a flat, there's sort of like a ceiling price to what they go for. So they will go up in value, but not as much as the house prices in the same area. So that, hopefully that makes sense. I mean, I don't know the whole evidence behind that, but basically what he was saying is that I won't see the property value of this flat go up hugely in the next few years, like I would if I bought a house in the same area. The outstanding mortgage on our property is £96,000. The equity that we have, so 215 less than 96,000, gives us £119,000 equity. Thinking if we were to move into a new property, there'd be moving and selling fees. So we would have stamp duty on a new property, would have solicitor fees, would have estate agent fees. So I've just done a rough calculation that might cost us 19 grand. I don't know if that's too low, too high, but for argument's sake, I'm going to say that we have an equity to bring forward into the new property of £100,000. Realistically, I mean, I've the most we would be able to afford on another mortgage would be like up to £1,800, £1,900 per month. So what I've done, I mean, before this video, I did a few different tests. I think I want to be mortgage free regardless of the property. I wouldn't want a mortgage past the age of 55, just for personal reasons, because that is sort of, in my view, 55 plus is my retirement wind down era. So I don't really want to be carrying forward a mortgage into that period. So yeah, that means a 20-year mortgage is probably the maximum I want. So yeah, we're restricted to say like the new house value, say 400,000. So the mortgage loan would be going from 96,000 to 300,000. And assuming the 4% rate on that 20-year loan, it's £1,818 per month, which, I mean, it makes me want to cry thinking about that as a mortgage amount. So I think even just seeing those figures makes me think that maybe a 400 grand house probably, isn't for me at the moment, but I'm going to go through with all the figures. So then the other scenario is if I didn't move up the property ladder, I could invest this excess, so the 1,818 minus the 610 that I currently pay, and instead of buying a property with that £1,200, I could invest that £1,200. And the assumption is that the investment would be in a global index fund held within a stocks and shares ISA. So I've already set out the figures below, but I'll talk through what the figures are. And then what I'll do is I'll run some scenarios and pop it in a summary tab, and then we can talk through the results. So we've got two bits at the top here, which is some assumptions about what property growth is and investment growth is. I've had a look online this morning to try and get some reasonable assumptions on these two things. The problem is that there's a lot of different sources which give different estimates, which has led me to the conclusion that I'm just going to pop some reasonable scenarios in and then show them in a table and then talk through that, rather than picking one likely figure for each. So what I mean by property growth is this would be year-on-year property growth. So the assumption that I'm running in this scenario, which I'm going to talk through now, is that property growth is 5% and investment growth is 5%. Sorry, I was just checking. This is the table I'm going to populate, which is looking at, for each scenario, the difference between what my investments would return me and what the property would return me. So this first assumption is that the property growth is 5% and the investment growth is 5% per year. So I've got some summary figures that you'll see in a moment at the top, but ignore these for the moment. But yeah, for property, I've got month on month. So the initial property value is here, the starting mortgage, which is your 100 grand equity, so 300 grand mortgage, the interest rate, which you can see at the top here, I'm assuming 4%, so it's 300 grand times by the 4% divided by 12, because it's the monthly interest. So it's around £1,000 per month. The mortgage payment is £1,818, and then the end mortgage is my starting mortgage plus my interest minus my mortgage payment. And then you can see the end property value, which takes my initial property value, then multiplies it by 5%. Sorry, multiplies by 5% divided by 12 plus the 1. I'm trying to work out how to explain this, but it's basically like if the annual growth is 5%, then the month-on-month growth is 5% divided by 12. So that's how I've worked that out. So then the equity, so what I own of the property is the current property value minus the outstanding mortgage. So £102,485. So you can see in month one, I started with £100,000 in equity, but then because of the house price growth and because of the mortgage payment, I ended up with an extra 2.5 grand, because yeah, hopefully that makes sense. And then what I've done is I've ran that projection month on month, so you can see, I mean, in month 2, the property value is the property value of the end property value of the month before. And what you can do is, to just double check this is working right, if I pick like the Jan 27 is 420, 424.65, and if I can just divide that by 400, I should be coming out with 5%, and I am roughly, it's like 5.1%. So you can see here, so how that changes. So I haven't frozen myself, so you'll just have to keep in mind that this is the equity and this is the end property value and this is the end mortgage. So you can see month on month how that runs down up until the mortgage gets to 0. And then the final property value and my final equity would be December 2045. This is when I am just about to turn 55. It's 1.1 million would be the property value. And yeah, just to double check my figures again. So if I just do December 45 divided by the year before, 5%. Okay, so just double checking that nothing's went wrong with the figures. So there's my property values, and then my investment values are over to the right here. So I tried to make this realistic because I already have around £10,000 in the stocks and shares ISA, so my starting value is £10,000. The contributions are 1208, and then the interest is taking that assumed 5% and dividing it by 12. So to get the monthly interest. So you can it starts out with being £42 a month. You can see how these figures all ramp up. So that at the time when I get to 2045, it's £2,000 in interest that's being accrued per month. So you've just had a sneak peek at the final figures there. So I've got a summary table at the top. So my total interest amount paid on the property over the lifetime would be £136,306. The equity increase is my final equity value minus the £100,000 I started with. So after 20 years, it would be nearly £1 million in equity. The total interest on the investments would be £223,000 in that time period, and the investment increase is £513,000. So that is my just go to here is my December 45. So the 523,000 I end with minus the £10,000 I started with. So you can see that the property has increased in value more than the investments in my contributions. So the I'd end up with 400 sorry, I've lost the train of thought there. So basically, if I do investment minus property, I'm 471,000 worse off. So if I had chosen to invest rather than move up the property ladder, that'd be £471,425 worse off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, so the 5% one, I'm going to take this and I'm just going to pop that in here. And then I'm just going to change these. Okay, and then I'm just going to change the format of all these cells while I'm at it. Right, so what I'll do is so my scenarios are 3, 5, 7, and 10%. So the first one I'm going to try is property 3%. I might do all the ones in the diagonal first. So property 3%. Sorry, you can hear me. My keyboard is in an awkward position because I've got my microphone in front of us. So that's why you can hear things moving about. So 3%, 3%. So I think the story here is that in property's going to do better on the diagonal when they're the same, but the lower the percentage growth, the less pronounced it is. So I'm expecting these two to be quite a big difference. So 7%, 7%, so 855. And then 10%, 10%. 1.8, okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick on my 10% investments and now do the different property scenarios. So 10% investment, but only 7% property growth. 5% property growth. Oh, so this one it's starting to look like that would be pretty much nearly the same, and then 3% property growth. Okay. Then 7% investments. 3% property growth. 5% property growth. Oh, this way we've got it. Right, this way we've got to pay attention so that I don't do the wrong thing. Okay, 10%. Okay, I'm surprised at the minute that the investments are doing so poorly compared to the property on all these scenarios. But when I've got all the figures, let me think about it. Seven percent. Investment growth 5%. 3%. Okay, then the final one is investment growth 3%. That's the 223 that I've already got. 5%. 580. 580. 7% is 1 million. Okay, so that is the results here. Yeah, so I'm surprised. So what that's saying to me is that given the figures I've set out, and I'm hoping there's not an error in here, because that's the only other thing I'm thinking is, have I errored somewhere? Because it let me just do a sense check. So 400, 123 times 1.05 to the power of 20. Just do this here. Oops, I forgot my equal sign. Right. So 5% property growth ends me with an equity of $1 million. Yeah, so close enough. That's fine. Okay, so I think these figures are right. I'm hoping that if I have made a huge error, someone will let me know in the comments, and feel free to critique my analysis. But so what this is saying is, the only scenario where investments you're better off investing is if investment growth is 10% or 7% and property growth is only 3% per year. I mean, I think this is probably one of the crucial assumptions, is I don't know what is likely for this. I mean, with property, I assume that there is a ceiling, because house prices can only go up. I mean, this might be a false statement, but house prices are bound by what people can afford on mortgages. So kind of mortgage policy and the 4.5 times the income. I can't remember what that threshold is now, but that the amount that you're allowed to borrow, that really impacts how much property can increase in value by. So maybe I've given scenarios that are too generous here, maybe. I mean, there's also something to say about that. So say I get to 55 and I've got £1 million property, that's great, but like it's a liquid, and I wonder if the yeah, I'm trying to think if I've made a mistake here, because I'm thinking I haven't taken into account my if in the scenario where I'm investing, I still have I still have my property I'm currently in, and I have that equity. But I suppose what I'm comparing here is the difference between the money and what I could achieve with that £1,200. I'm going to stop waffling here, because I suppose my summary is, these are the figures I've got. They're a bit perplexing. Hopefully someone in the comments kind of maybe explains why it is such a slant towards the property. I'm unsure. So yeah, let us know in the comments below if you've got any thoughts. If you've got any general comments about, this whole question of moving up the property ladder, then do let me know. As I said, even just doing these figures and thinking about an £1,800 a month mortgage compared to my £600 a month, that would frighten me, because I'd feel very trapped having £1,800 as a monthly payment that I had to meet. And the emergency fund I need to build on that to have peace of mind would be ginormous. So I'll pause there. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you on the next video.